Evil wears many masks, and the most dangerous is the mask of virtue. The power of evil lies in its ability to conceal itself. Gina had the potential to become a famous movie star in the future, but fate had different plans. One day, the young woman simply vanished without a trace. She disappeared just a few feet away from reaching her home. In the summer of 2006, 14-year-old Georgine Krüger relocated with her family to Stendelstrasse in Berlin. The girl's parents had divorced a couple of years earlier. Her mother's name was Vesna, and her younger sister was Michelle. Georgina also had an older brother named Tommy, who was 22 at the time and lived separately. Being new to the class, Gina, as she was more often called at home, had virtually no friends. Her female classmates disliked the fact that Gina's arrival caused a stir among the boys, although Gina herself was unaware of how many teenagers found her attractive. Suddenly becoming popular among the male half of the class, the girl provoked a negative reaction from the girls. They were simply jealous of her and were in no hurry to accept her into their group. In reality, Georgina paid a lot of attention to her appearance. She always dressed fashionably, enjoyed wearing makeup, and took care of herself. She dreamed of becoming an actress, but also considered modeling. Gina often danced in front of the mirror, tried out different looks, and imagined herself in the spotlight on a big stage. The girl adored Indian films the most. While watching the actors on the TV screen, she mimicked their movements and tried to sing along with them. On Friday, September 22, 2006, her dream was supposed to come true because Georgina received an offer to play a small role in the film Turkish for Beginners. They promised to call her after the weekend. On Monday, September 25th, the casting agency was supposed to contact the schoolgirl to inform her of their decision. The filming was scheduled for the next autumn holidays. Gina had everything planned out and was eagerly awaiting the start of the week to answer the call and receive the coveted agreement for a small role in the project. It was what she had long dreamed of. Saturday and Sunday seemed endless to the girl. On Monday, September 25th, 2006, Gina somehow sat through her lessons and rushed home after school. She would not miss the call from the agency for anything, but unfortunately, things did not go at all as the high school student expected. Friends, over 90% of viewers watch videos without subscribing to the channel. Check if you're subscribed. If not, please be so kind as to subscribe to the channel to support me. After leaving school, Georgina, as usual, hurried to the public transport stop, boarded the #27 bus, and headed home. She needed to ride for a few stops and then walk just 600 feet to find herself in front of the front door. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the high school student was seen getting off the bus. Her grandmother and younger sister Michelle were at home. They had already prepared lunch. They were just waiting for Gina to sit down at the table together. But the girl never arrived home. At 2 o'clock, the grandmother tried to contact her granddaughter on her mobile phone, but she didn't answer. The woman was worried. Anything could have happened. Perhaps Gina missed the bus or met someone she knew and got caught up in conversation. In any case, she should have appeared any minute. However, time passed, and the schoolgirl still wasn't there. The grandmother tried to dial her granddaughter's number again to hurry her up, but the call immediately went to voicemail. Then the woman decided to call the school to find out if anything unusual had happened. Maybe Georgina had skipped classes altogether. The school reassured her and said that the girl had attended all the lessons and had gone home after they ended. The teacher noticed that Gina had been a little distracted that day, but her grandmother knew the reason. Her granddaughter was waiting for a call from the casting agency and could not believe her own luck. The elderly woman began to worry more and more with each passing hour. She waited until Georgina's mother came home and told her what had happened. Vesna immediately had a bad feeling. Such behavior was uncharacteristic of her eldest daughter. Gina was always punctual, kept her agreements, and would never have been so late without notifying her loved ones. Moreover, she would never have turned off her mobile phone. The women immediately dialed the police station and reported the schoolgirl's disappearance. At first, the officers went through all the possible scenarios. Could Krüger have run away from home? Was there a serious quarrel with family or friends? Was Gina dating a boy, and could she have done something foolish due to teenage love? Or maybe there was some conflict at school, and the upset girl was just hiding somewhere. But it was important to remember that on that day, Gina was supposed to receive a call from the agency about her role in the film Turkish for Beginners, and she would not have missed that call for anything in the world, considering that she had been talking about it all weekend. The police recorded what the girl was wearing when she was last seen and compiled a description. Georgina was approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall, had long, straight hair, and was dressed in light blue jeans with scuffs, brown-heeled ankle boots, and a white denim jacket. She had a long, strapped pink school bag with her and a mobile phone, which was later found to be turned off. Detectives traced the location of the schoolgirl's cell phone through cell towers and discovered that at 2:06 p.m., the device was pinged on Stendelstrasse, and at 2:08 p.m., it was already switched off. It was unlikely that Georgina, being practically at home at some point, decided to turn around, especially since she was expecting a very important call from the agency that day about the role. She was seen getting off bus #27, which definitely proved that the girl was very close to home, at least within a few minutes' walk. A large search operation was launched on the street where the Krüger family lived. All nearby attics and basements were checked. The police even used dogs trained to detect human remains. Investigators questioned local residents and Gina's classmates. They checked several dozen criminals who were out on bail or had recently been released from prison. The Krüger family handed out leaflets with a photograph of the schoolgirl. Posters with a description of the missing girl were also posted throughout the district. Vesna herself went around to the neighbors and tried to find out any information about her daughter. However, all the efforts of the investigators and the family did not move the case forward and did not yield any results. Georgina seemed to have vanished into thin air just 300 feet from her home. Weeks and months passed, and 3 years after the girl disappeared in broad daylight, a second search operation was organized. This time, the police again used search dogs capable of finding not only human remains, but also living people. The service dogs began their search from the bus stop, but they led the investigators not to the Krüger's house but to the suburbs. The police searched the wooded area but found no evidence that the girl had ever been there, which was not surprising since hoping that the dogs would pick up a scent after 3 years was pointless. The repeated search operation also did not provide any leads in the case. It did not move forward. There was a feeling that they were looking for a needle in a haystack. But this was not a needle, but a real teenage girl, and she could not have vanished without a trace. Many years later, in 2016, another search was conducted. It seemed that it would yield at least some results. The residents of Stendelstrasse, where the Krüger family lived, were checked and questioned again, and there was a small breakthrough in the case. According to neighbors, a 30-year-old unemployed man lived in their area. He could stand on the porch for hours, looking at passing teenagers. He clearly enjoyed watching them. The man was often seen chatting with young girls, the same age as the missing Gina. Sometimes he would say all sorts of obscenities to them and ask provocative questions, like whether they had ever slept with boys. At the same time, he hinted that he could help them figure out this intimate issue. To win over the high school girls, he often understated his age and tried to appear younger than he actually was. The schoolgirls were not afraid of him but tried to avoid him, considering him strange and very intrusive. It was this strangeness that made the neighbors pay attention to him. So who was this person? The man living next door to the Krüger family was named Ali K. He was the father of 3 children and lived with them and his wife Melik in an apartment at 3 Stendelstrasse. Ali, who grew up in the Middle East, was unemployed and stayed afloat by taking odd jobs and receiving social benefits. He had a lot of debts and constantly had problems with money because he lived beyond his means. His passion, apart from young girls, was expensive and fashionable cars, which he could only dream of. In his free time, the man often visited a Turkish cafe located on the first floor of his apartment building. There he met with friends and acquaintances, although in reality, Ali had no close friends. For the most part, he communicated with random people who happened to be nearby. The investigators paid attention not only to the neighbor's testimony about the man's strange behavior, but also to his previous criminal record. In 2011, he committed a violent crime by luring a 17-year-old neighbor into his basement. The girl, after walking with her friend, went home, and Ali was standing on the porch of house number 3. He called out to the schoolgirl and offered to buy her a mobile phone. The high school student was interested in the lucrative offer. After hesitating and being persuaded, she followed Ali into the basement, where the gadget supposedly lay. Naturally, there was no phone there. Instead, Ali said that he had been in love with the girl for a long time and was even ready to leave his wife just to be with her. After the confession, the man tried to kiss her, but the schoolgirl sharply refused, for which she received a blow to the back of the head. When her exhausted body slid down, Ali sat on top of her. Despite attempts to scream and resist, the girl could not resist the adult man. When it was over, Ali stood up and handed the captive a handkerchief to wipe away her tears. The rapist threatened her to keep her mouth shut and not dare to tell anyone what had happened, not her family, friends, or especially the police. The girl nodded obediently, but in reality, she was just waiting for the moment when she would escape from the basement. Once outside, she went straight to the police station and told everything, pointing her finger at Ali. The high school student also described the basement room in great detail and named some details confirming the authenticity of the story. According to her, it was more like a small room where the owner spent his free time than a storeroom with unnecessary things. Ali was charged with assaulting a 17-year-old girl. In 2012, he received a 1.5 year probation for abusing a minor combined with bodily harm. According to the accused, the girl herself asked him to use a mobile phone. When he went to the basement, she followed him. After examining the gadget, the high school student stated that she had no money with her, but she could pay in another way, to which Ali categorically refused, as he had a family and his own children. He would never have risked the well-being of his loved ones. Apparently, this did not stop the girl, and she tried to hug the man, for which she received a slap on the back of the head. The humiliated and angry schoolgirl began to shout that she would ruin Ali's family by telling his wife and children everything. She could not calm down and was showering him with threats, promising to ruin his life. It even seemed to the man that the girl had some kind of harmful addiction because her mood changed too quickly. Ali's family fully supported him and assured that the schoolgirl had long shown interest in an adult man and had repeatedly tried to flirt with him. After he rejected her, she decided to take revenge in this way, claiming that he had forced her to have sexual intercourse. This whole story with the 17-year-old girl largely coincided with the situation of Georgina. The schoolgirl was also returning home after classes and disappeared in the same area where Ali had attacked another high school student. According to the mobile phone data, Gina disappeared in the area between the bus stop and her house number 8 on Stendelstrasse. Ali also lived there in house number 3. The girl would have had to pass by his front door in any case. Could this person have somehow intercepted the schoolgirl? The problem was that the search dogs showed no interest in the basement of Ali's house. The detectives had no specific evidence, no witness statements, no DNA, nothing that could be presented to the suspect. The only coincidence was that on the day of the disappearance, Georgina and Ali's mobile phones were pinged in the same area. This could indicate that they were together, but it could also mean that they simply lived on the same street. And that's all. Interrogating the man would also be pointless. If the police have nothing to present, he will simply say that he had nothing to do with Gina's disappearance. The authorities decided to apply a rather unusual strategy. To begin with, they simply monitored Ali's phone calls. The surveillance continued for several weeks. Investigators learned that the man had money problems. He was gambling and owed a fairly large sum, at least 10,000 euros. The police decided to play on this. They were facing a long-term and very costly operation to introduce agents into the close circle of the suspect's family. They simply had no other options to get closer to the case of the missing girl. An undercover police officer named Håkan was sent on the case. This was his code name. He was supposed to enter the circle of Ali's trusted people to try to find out information about the disappearance of Georgine Krüger. The undercover agent was supposed to appear before the suspect in the role of a successful businessman who had come to Berlin to open a car wash. He appeared in the cafe located on the first floor of the apartment building where Ali lived, and managed to establish contact with the suspect. It was assumed that the operation would be quite lengthy, in order not to arouse any suspicion on Ali's part. Håkan became acquainted with the regulars of the Turkish cafe and told them the story of his car wash business, which he planned to open in the area. He needed a manager with a good salary. Ali, who had no way to pay off his accumulated debts, became interested in the opening prospects. Soon, he and Håkan became inseparable, once they traveled together on business to Frankfurt. Thanks to this trip, the men began to trust each other even more. Ali already really imagined how his life would change after getting a job at the car wash as a manager. He and Håkan began to meet in private as well. However, Ali was in no hurry to share his sins with his new friend. On the contrary, he wanted to appear in the eyes of the businessman as a decent and worthy person so as not to miss out on the high-paying position. If everything worked out, all his financial problems would be solved, and Ali could finally buy the car of his dreams and live the life he always wanted. Everything was going according to plan. However, the authorities had not made any progress in Gina's case, so they decided to introduce another undercover agent, codenamed Susie, into the operation. According to the cover story, she was Håkan's girlfriend. Her objective was to get close to Ali's family and attempt to extract information from his wife, Melik. Over time, Melik and Susie indeed became best friends. The two couples frequently spent time together, celebrating holidays and going on vacations. Håkan and Susie brought toys for Ali's children and occasionally babysat them, but the case of Georgina remained at a standstill. No evidence, even indirect, linking Ali to the girl's disappearance could be found. Moreover, the undercover agents aroused suspicion in Ali's sister, who believed that these individuals had not entered her brother's life by chance. For some reason, she was somewhat skeptical of them, sensing that something was amiss. The woman even noticed that Susie and Håkan did not seem like a couple in love. If Ali had listened to his sister, everything might have turned out differently. But he had grown so accustomed to the role of a successful manager of a future business that he refused to listen to anyone. When the investigators realized that the man had no intention of tarnishing his reputation in front of his future employer, they decided to introduce another agent into the case, Håkan's cousin Kor, who had a criminal past. According to the cover story, he was a slippery character capable of committing crimes and possessed rather dubious proclivities. The authorities hoped that by acquainting himself with someone willing to break the law, Ali would be more forthcoming. In the absence of any physical evidence, they could only hope for the criminal's own confession. The investigators were prepared to invest a great deal of effort and time to obtain this from Ali. Kor and Ali quickly found common ground. It all began when the two men visited a brothel together. Ali, who had never cheated on his wife and strived to maintain this image in front of others, easily abandoned his principles the moment a young girl appeared on the horizon. Moreover, Kor paid for the pleasure out of his own pocket. The secret undercover agent explained to Ali that the money was obtained illegally, which was why he easily squandered it. Thus, they managed to see the suspect from two sides: as an exemplary family man who wanted to work for the sake of the future, and as a jovial reveler for whom his wife and children were not an obstacle when it came to pleasure. To ensure the credibility of the entire operation, the investigators had to rent a plot of land for the future car wash and sign a fictitious contract with Ali. Now, all hope rested on Kor. If he failed to engage the suspect in conversation, then Georgina's case could be safely filed away as unsolved. However, in 2018, something unexpected occurred. An unknown man called the police and stated that while he was not the perpetrator, he knew the location of the missing Georgine Krüger's body. The stranger provided coordinates where they should search for the high school student's remains, and then hung up. Tracing the call proved unsuccessful, but a team of specialists was urgently dispatched to the specified location. The coordinates led to the Brizzy-Langer forest. The area was combed through thoroughly, but no traces of the girl were found. It remains unknown whether this call was someone's foolish prank or if someone wanted to further confuse the investigation. Unfortunately, the witness who led the detectives on a false trail could not be located. However, new leaflets were created for the Georgine Krüger case. They featured a special QR code that, when scanned, allowed one to hear the caller's voice. The authorities hoped that this method would enable someone to recognize the anonymous witness's voice, and at the same time, they wanted to use these flyers to lure Ali into a trap. They were curious to see how the suspect would react upon learning that someone had called the police regarding the high school student's whereabouts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this video. It's really important. The detectives took advantage of Ali's passion for fast and expensive cars and rented his favorite Porsche model. The vehicle was equipped with a listening device, and a leaflet with Gina's photo and a QR code was placed on the back seat. Through their undercover agents, they allowed Ali and his wife Maniac to take a ride in this car, hoping that a conversation about the girl's disappearance would arise between them. Initially, Ali and Maniac did not notice the leaflet, but at some point, it caught their eye. The woman reacted very indifferently, merely expressing surprise that someone had called the police so many years after Georgina's disappearance. This was a normal reaction for someone not involved in the crime. However, Ali noticeably became nervous. He tried to speculate about who the caller might have been and what information this witness could possess. Additionally, Ali took the leaflet with him to a Turkish coffee shop and began showing it to his friends in an attempt to find out if they knew anything about the case. Later, he explained this interest by saying that he wanted to help the police. The investigators, on the other hand, wondered why a person with no connection to the disappearance would suddenly, after years, feel the need to gather information. Ali's actions only convinced the authorities that they were on the right track and needed to keep pursuing him. As for Maniac, his wife, the detectives concluded that she knew nothing about her husband's actions and did not even suspect that he could be involved, which explained her lack of interest in the old case. The investigators were almost certain that Ali had kept the crime a secret from her. The detectives' further strategy was to utilize the friendly relationship that had developed between Ali and the undercover agent Kaur for the benefit of the investigation. One day, Kaur told Ali about his girlfriend and the problems she was causing him. They often argued. The thing was that Kaur had supposedly wanted to break up with her for a long time, but couldn't do so for a rather delicate reason. His girlfriend was blackmailing him. Opening up, he shared his story with Ali. At some point in the past, the man had taken someone's life and foolishly confessed this to his girlfriend. No one knew about this except the two of them. Even his cousin Håkan was unaware. At some point, they had forgotten about the incident. But as soon as Kaur mentioned breaking up, the girl threatened to go to the police and tell them everything. The man no longer knew how to extricate himself from this situation. He didn't want to go to prison and didn't want to remain under the blackmailer's thumb. So, he asked Ali for advice on what he would do in a similar case. Ali sympathized, but this did not bring the team any closer to investigating Georgina's disappearance. The investigators hoped that sooner or later, he would see Kaur as an ally and become more forthcoming with him. The men continued to regularly discuss Kaur's relationship problems. Ali suggested various solutions without uttering a word about his past transgressions. Kaur decided to accelerate the process, and one day made a €150,000 offer. He was ready to remove his girlfriend from his path by any means possible, even if it was illegal. The detectives knew that Ali was in desperate need of money since he had not yet started his job as the car wash manager, and the sum of €150,000 could pay off all his debts and allow him to change his life for the better, solving a host of other financial problems. Of course, Ali could not miss such an opportunity. He offered to rid Kaur of the blackmailer himself. He was eager to get the money, so he devised various scenarios on how best to carry out the job. The perpetrator clarified details such as the girl's weight, whether he would need a car and where best to attack her. Ali was considering options for the crime, and the trap was about to snap shut. But the goal of investigating Georgina's case still had not been achieved. The detectives were fortunate that one day, while Ali and Kaur were riding in a car together, a conversation took place between them that was recorded. Ali was again going over options for completing the task and how he could carry it out. He mentioned that he had even searched the internet for information on how best to dispose of a lifeless body. The undercover agent was stalling for time and allowing Ali to independently reason about the dangerous topic. He did not push him in any direction to avoid later being accused of incitement. After listening to Ali's thoughts, Kaur told him that he did not believe Ali could take a person's life, even for a large sum of money. And that's when what the investigators had been waiting for over several months occurred. Ali and Kaur discussed all the possible consequences of the crime and how the perpetrator himself imagined it. To confirm his readiness and convince his friend of his determination, Ali shared a story from his life, and it was the story of Georgine Krüger's disappearance. According to Ali, this girl was amazing. Every day at the same time on her way to and from school, she would pass by Ali's front door, heading to the bus stop. The man knew her approximate schedule, so he went outside every day just to see her. He wanted to get to know her better at all costs. On Monday, September 25th, 2006, Ali was standing at the entrance as usual when Gina got off the bus and headed towards her house in high spirits. That day, the girl was incredibly beautiful. Her eyes sparkled in a special way, and she was literally glowing with happiness. Ali approached the high school student with a request for help. He needed to carry several bags down to the basement. He even offered to pay the girl for the service. Gina, who often saw her neighbor with his children and family, had no idea how her assistance would end. In the basement of Ali's house were storage rooms. The man had turned a closet into a kind of room. As soon as the girl was inside, he hit her on the head. Georgina screamed in pain, and to somehow calm her down and make her be quiet, he struck her again with greater force. Gina lost consciousness and collapsed on the floor. Ali then told Kaur in great detail what happened next. He regretted his actions, but realized that if he let Georgina out of the basement, he would again face prison time. He simply squeezed her neck with his hands and did not let go until Gina stopped breathing. Ali recounted the story of the terrible assault in such detail that he even mentioned how his knuckles later ached from the intense strain. His narration was very vivid and credible, with many details that would be impossible to make up if he had simply wanted to brag. After Georgina died, Ali hid her in his basement room for 3 days, then wrapped the body in an old carpet and simply threw it in the trash. Of course, the detectives checked this. They investigated the entire waste disposal process and learned that all the garbage is incinerated. So Gina Krüger's remains were completely destroyed, but Ali's confession was enough to make an arrest. They came for him in December 2018, 12 years after Gina's disappearance. Ali was at home with his daughter. All the premises belonging to his family were searched, but nothing linking him to the missing girl was found. During the interrogation, the man did not say a word. He remained silent when he was charged, and later kept silent in court. Ali was in custody for a year and a half. He and his family were completely confident in an acquittal, as there was no real evidence against him. No DNA, no body, no witnesses, nothing but his confession. The prosecution team compared Ali's previous conviction with what he had told the undercover agent Kaur, and much of it matched. It was the modus operandi of a single criminal. Nevertheless, it was Ali's detailed account of the events of that day that convinced the jury and the judge that this man was guilty of the death of 14-year-old Georgine Krüger, a girl who might have been destined for world fame in the movie industry. Gina's mother, Vesna Krüger, had hoped all this time that her daughter had simply run away from home. The woman didn't even entertain the thought that the girl was no longer alive. After all, there was no evidence that she had been attacked and abducted in broad daylight. The news of the neighbor's arrest and his subsequent conviction broke the mother's heart. Somewhere deep down, she wished the accusation was a mistake. After all, it would have rekindled her hope that someday she would meet her Gina. On March 17, 2020, Ali was sentenced to life imprisonment. Subsequently, he claimed that he was a victim in this case. He had agreed to act as a hitman for Kaur's girlfriend only to save her and get her out of harm's way. In fact, he intended to go to the police and expose Kaur's plan. Lawyers advised Ali to remain silent in court, so he was unable to tell his own version of events. The man still insists that he had nothing to do with Georgine Krüger's disappearance. However, the confession speaks for itself. Surprisingly, Ali's family also believes that he was wrongfully convicted. The police simply spent a lot of time and money trying to expose him, and to somehow justify the expenses, they pinned the crime on him. Only one man knows the whole truth, and now behind bars, perhaps one day his conscience will overcome him and he will admit to the evil he has done. This is the end of the story. Like the video and leave your thoughts in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you soon.